And welcome to Inferno TV, the second episode of the 2015-2016 season. As you can see, we have some rabble in tonight. But joining me on the sofas, and clearly not rabble, are Aled and John from Icetime TV.
Previously rabble.
And the Devil's webcast team. Well, possibly at one point. So they had the chance to enjoy the games on the weekend, guys, and obviously the owners were over to enjoy that with us as well. Yeah. Of course, we missed the show last week. Maybe we should touch briefly on how the Sheffield game that went the week before, and how you felt this weekend's games went. So maybe if we have a quick chat about, just because I think they kind of interconnected the performances really. So how do you?
You watched the webcast
for Sheffield?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
I watched the webcast, and we had the joy and pleasure of listening to Mr. John Donovan gracing our screens for the webcast on Sheffield.
I'd have asked my money back, to be honest.
I thought it was nice to hear, sort of a balanced opinion. To be honest,
yeah, I think it was. No, first of all, obviously John does a fabulous job, as we know, with the Devils ones as well. But it was nice, given the smashing that we took, to be able to sort of hear the Devils' perspective on that as well. I thought that definitely added to the webcast as well, because it is difficult. When we're doing it with the Devils, if the Devils are winning a game comprehensively, sometimes it can be difficult as Devils fans to look at the problem areas with the side that's taking a beating, and that did really add to it, I thought. And you were there to witness it firsthand.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I should give a thanks to Seth Bennett, who obviously does the commentary for Sheffield. He kindly invited me up. I didn't think initially to do commentary. He's of the mind that if all the webcasts around the league get better, that benefits hockey as a whole. And the profile of British hockey as a whole. So he sort of invited me up to have a look at how Sheffield do their product and the behind the scenes aspects of it, which was quite interesting, and then kindly invited me to be on the commentary, and I hope I didn't annoy too many people. But I think in terms of the game, and I referenced it in commentary a few times, it was our first game on big ice, and I know that annoys a lot of people sometimes, and I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination we can't play on big ice. The point I think I was trying to make in commentary was we had been conditioned to playing on a smaller ice pad simply because the 3 or 4 weeks previously we'd been training and playing at the Big Blue Tent and only at the Sky Dome, which was slightly bigger. So whilst I'm sure over the course of the season playing on big ice won't be a problem, I think it was going to take a 20-minute period to get used to defensemen knowing when they could pinch in, or that little bit of extra skating lane between them and the boards and having to close that gap quicker. I think there was a conditioning issue there in terms of being used to a smaller ice, going to a bigger ice. That first 20 minutes, I think I referenced in commentary, we needed to stay in the game. Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't. I think it was 4-0 at the end of that period, and unfortunately from then on in, the game was really sort of over as a contest, and Andrew Lord tried to lead from the front, but I think chalk it down to just a good learning experience, and would imagine things will be different in Nottingham on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the main thing was that we weren't in the game then after the first. I know, I'm sure that's not what was said in the dressing room and all that sort of stuff, but being 4-0 down at Sheffield after one, it's very likely you're going to come back, and that was the important thing. Is I'm sure that was the game plan going up there, was to stay in the game after the first and work the way into it. But, and again, not to use the big ice as an excuse, but when you've been training on that the whole time, and just with the problems that seemed evident, especially in that first period, it was positional play defensively. It was a little bit of the back check as well, with that high forward coming back as well, and covering that additional skate. And Sheffield had an awful lot of space there in the offensive zone, and it's difficult to not put that, at least an element of that, down to positional play, which inevitably is going to be more of a challenge on a first go up on the Olympic pad. That said, I think perhaps an area where where things may improve in that scenario again is that there didn't seem to be there were a couple of changes to line combination things, but perhaps at least on the webcast the feeling was there didn't seem to be a huge change perhaps in approach as a way to sort of find a way back into the game.
No, I think and I can completely understand why Coach Andrew Lord did this. I think in that first period the Devils moved away from their normal high forechecking game and played that 1-2-2 and tried to play a little bit more trap. But that just gave Sheffield's puck-moving defensemen an opportunity to break at speed and move the puck at speed. And then I think we were caught in a bit of a quandary as to what to do, whether to go for a high-pressing forecheck game, whether to play more aggressive. We didn't really do anything in the end, and Sheffield just broke the game open.
Yeah, I thought we were a bit too gentle. I felt that maybe in the first period, we maybe could have called a timeout when and had a look at the shape. Maybe try to calm the guys down a little bit. And I was a bit surprised that we didn't have a bit more physicality to some extent. I think by the time we thought we might do a bit of physicality, it was far too late anyway, and it was completely pointless. But I think you're right. It's a lesson for us. At least it wasn't a league encounter, so
no.
It's the right time to be learning a lesson if you're going to learn one. For me, I thought it exposed some possible defensive issues, which I think we'll probably touch on as we review the next two games, because there's kind of a pattern to the games. So then we went on and we met Braehead, obviously, on Saturday. And they had a pretty good CHL campaign. They had an excellent win, but they were competed in all those games. They look like a good outfit on paper. They're well coached. They've got Hartman. It is Hartman on the bench as well now. And he's obviously also an experienced head. Affinity appears to have gone to a different style of team really this year. There's a lot of speed, a lot of skill. There's a very high level netminder obviously that he's brought in. What was your feeling? That game maybe didn't go the way that I expected. What did you think about the way that game went?
Well, it's been similar, I think, to most of our home games so far, in that it hasn't had the flow that I expected, or we haven't had the flow that I expected the Devils to have early season with so many players coming back. And I think there is perhaps a slight change in the way that the Devils are approaching games as well. Perhaps that there's a few changes we might talk about a bit later in terms of the way that the defence are looking to activate and things like that. And obviously we've got a wealth of goaltending and not goaltending, but goal scoring as well.
Yeah.
And it does seem to be that sort of ability and attitude that as they've shown at home, that they're able to find those goals when needed. But there's been very little flow. I felt that there was a little bit more zone time and control in the last period, and I think Kirk probably had about 3 or 4 chances which were and he just got stoned by Holt there, and he kept them in the game in that last period. He just made some stellar saves, and that was that. But Bounds made a great save towards the end of the game as well, when it could have gone. And they failed a couple of scrappy goals as well. So it just, at the moment, it doesn't feel like the Devils are quite clicked. But on the other side, it's great to be winning games at home, and still only 1 loss since the start of the season. And it's good to get into that habit.
No, I'd agree. I think I don't think the Devils are playing 60-minute hockey at the moment, which was the sort of the hallmark of their profile last year, that high-intensity game.
Yeah.
But then that is a sign of a good team, that perhaps they're not playing as well as they can at the moment. But they've still got the firepower that they can break games open if they need to. That Braehead game, no, it wasn't the game I was expecting. I was expecting direct hockey from the start, fast and physical. And I think we're going to talk about sort of the different zone markings and what have you in a moment. But I certainly felt that a compressed neutral zone on Saturday night was jammed by both teams. There was a lot of broken plays in the first and second period, and the extent and amount of whistles we had just didn't allow any flow to the game. But finally in the third we went 5-on-5 hockey, and there were spells of continuous play, and it was more the game we expected. And the Devils managed to edge a very important encounter with the clutch goal scorer right at the end.
Yes, another one of those goals to set again. Great. The one thing probably to touch on briefly, and this is not meant as an excuse, the ice, even though it's new ice, still looks particularly bumpy this season. The puck doesn't seem to be sitting very well. A lot of the guys seem to be struggling. Our team and the other team.
There was a lot of surface water, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
So
I think it's just conditional across the country, because even in Sheffield the week before, the ice, the logos itself look great, but there was surface water on the ice. It's humid outside. It's September hockey, so I think there's that problem throughout the first month of the season. That's why you get some crazy results. You get some blowouts. You get games, as we said, perhaps don't have the greatest amount of flow to them. So I think come the start of October, teams will have settled down, systems will have settled down, and hopefully playing conditions will be a bit better. So this first month of the season is just getting through it with minimal damage, perhaps.
Yes, and get as many points as you can. So what have you made of the zone changes then? Because obviously we saw that the lines had been moved. Now the ice has been repainted.
I mean, one area that has improved for the Devils since the certainly the last weekend or so is the power play, isn't it? It started to click a little bit more, and it looked better. Against Braehead, it obviously went well up in Manchester as well, and the extended zone or offensive zone should help that, allowing a little bit more space on an already small ice pad for that, and and that helps the Devils, I think, because the power play is going to be a major weapon for the Devils again this year. I'm sure of that. So it's to have home ice advantage. That's an area where that's playing into their hands well. But we saw the flip side of it, where hopefully that was just a couple of teams getting used to how small that neutral zone was, and the Devils will adapt to it and be able to control the play, and in future games, and that might be something which disadvantages the away team. But it's very difficult for players to get that. You talk about bad ice on the one hand, but just to get that flow going when you've got continuous stoppages all the time. We had so many passages where it was sort of 10-15 seconds, we had another whistle.
It certainly, I think it was a deliberate tactic on behalf of the Devils. It surprised me how high they were with the pinching on the penalty kill, or the defenseman would pinch on the penalty kill to jam that neutral zone and just make that dump in, or gaining the red line to allow the dump in, particularly difficult for Braehead. So I think that was deliberate. I'm not sure for the rest of the game whether it was just conditions and I say getting used to that small neutral zone. But I think the number of whistles we had in the first and second period were up in the 90s. So it didn't allow for the flow of the game. But for the third period, both teams have settled down a little bit. Just on the power play point, it was noticeable in commentary that Thomas Kirker had moved to the half boards as opposed to quarterbacking the power play. For me personally, I think that was a better move. I think Joey Haddad was playing the top of the power play on that line, and he was shifting the puck a little bit quicker, and Kirker's just got that great release. So I speculate that might be a better position for Thomas Kirker going forward. Yeah,
I think so. I think Kirker's position definitely needed looking at previously. We probably weren't getting the best from him. So I thought he had a better game for me. So
and hand in hand with that was Haddad moving to centre on that line, and Kirker on the wing on 5-on-5 play. So what did everyone think of that?
Well, I as you know, in commentary, we spoke about Joey Haddad being man of the match. Todd Kelman, who knows far better than me, thought Joey had a good game, but he thought somebody else deserved it. So Carl Hudson got a well-deserved man of the match. But I thought Joey Haddad moving to centre ice, he made space for the other two in the offensive zone. He crashes bodies, he creates turnovers, he just plays a high-energy game. And surprisingly, for someone who perhaps hasn't played centre in a while, I know he has played centre a little in his career, but not for a while, the number of draws he won to retain possession, I thought were very impressive.
We don't keep the exact stats, but it seemed like he won a good portion of draws. Anyway, it certainly didn't seem like he was losing out.
That's good, because we maybe haven't been performing that well on those so far this season.
We haven't, and we haven't had the puck possession to be able to play our game, have we? No. So I think that's definitely a plus point there, without a doubt. And Martin's there, obviously Andrew Ball takes a lot of face-offs as well, and he's good at them. So I think that's definitely an area where the Devils will look to improve, because they're a puck possession side, aren't they? So
So comparing it to Newcastle football, we then went to Manchester on the Sunday, and very high scoring game by both teams. But the old Newcastle analogy is obviously that we'll score more goals than the other team, though we'll probably concede quite a few. We did concede quite a few goals there, but obviously we ran out winners, which is very important. We got the chance to get Mike in the net as well, and obviously we went on to win that game, so that was a great result. Great for Mike to get plenty of ice time too. But touching on previous points, really, is maybe highlighting some issues around some areas with the D, and some areas with what the forwards are doing when maybe they can be helping the D. How did you feel that game went? against Manchester. What did you make of that?
Well, it sort of makes the argument about big ice and conceding goals
Yeah,
a little bit.
it does. It does.
Dilutes that
Kind of
argument
spoils
a
it
little
a
bit,
bit,
doesn't
doesn't
it?
it? Yeah.
Although I still stand by, I think it was an issue there. But yeah, playing on an ice pad the same and then conceding 6 goals. Well, it was. I mean, I think. Well, I don't know really. I mean, Manchester's got a lot of speed, haven't they? So
Yes.
they're always going to.
That's how they built that team.
I think there's a mixture of a couple of things at the moment. It's still September hockey. Teams haven't settled down, and you are going to get a few crazy games. You are going to concede some goals. Your systems aren't exactly in place. There's still a little bit of rustiness amongst the players. But I think, without wishing to put words in his mouth, Andrew Lord is a perfectionist, attention to detail. He will be unhappy about the number of goals conceded, and there are little things that you can look at. He knows absolutely better than me, but you mentioned some of the forward elements in that. Doucette and Kirk on the same line, 2 fantastic forwards who are always thinking offence. But as a result, I think they're looking to escape the zone sometimes before maybe we have complete control of the puck. And if we don't retain possession of the puck, the defensemen are suddenly free, or we're outnumbered down low. So I just speculate, and this is very much a fan's viewpoint. I haven't played hockey to any high level. I'm not a coach, what have you. But would it be worth looking at splitting Doucette and Kirker? Really, it's great that we've got those offensive players who want to think offense first. But would you have 2 of those wingers on the same line who are perhaps escaping the zone or looking for that stretch pass earlier than they should be in terms of their defensive responsibilities? So those are things. I don't think you can just say it's the D, it's the 6D.
No.
Team defense is crucial. So yeah, there are going to be elements among the 6D that you can improve on. Ben Bounds is probably going to want a couple of goals back that he's had. Mike will on Sunday. But I think team defense is the key, and there's little things across the whole roster you can speculate and look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting, was it, in your interview with Carl Hudson after the game, you mentioned about the weak side D being activated, and he confirmed that is the case, and a directive from Andrew Lord in that. And so I suppose, and obviously the D pairings have been changed slightly as well, and that it's about knowing roles. And I thought something last year that was key to the success was that every player knew exactly what their job was on the ice, and that's normally the key in any sport. Any successful sporting team. And I suppose at the moment the directive is there, but there's obviously been perhaps a slight change in approach, with the new people that have come in. There's obviously a lot more offence this season, and it's one where Lord perhaps thinks that long and medium term there's going to be a benefit there, but there's going to be perhaps 1 or 2 short-term hits to take, and something like and when you're trying to be more offensively minded in that sense, things like 8-1 and then conceding 6 goals in Manchester, and and also conceding more goals at home as well. I mean, you go back as well. I think actually in the Steelers' home game, we looked extremely comfortable defending a couple of goals there until there was a bit of penalty trouble and things got a bit sort of frantic towards the end. But actually, the Devils looked extremely comfortable playing that sort of trap sort of game that they were quite comfortable playing towards the end of last season with a lead. So I think it probably is more to do with just the way they're trying to evolve the team and try sort of a way of playing out perhaps than any sort of individual sort of issue or just people perhaps not playing to their full ability. Of course there's probably going to be elements of that thrown in as well, but I just wonder whether there's a sort of tactical thing there where a lot of cup games to begin with, Devils are pretty much qualified for that. Opportunities there to try a system which is potentially going to reap greater rewards later on in the season. Maybe there's sort of some of that creeping in as well.
No, that's a good point.
Which, and I can't argue with.
No, that's possible. We know Lords had said after the games on the weekend that there was a couple of things he wanted to look at. So I think it'll be interesting to see this weekend whether we do see any changes.
Yeah. I do think, just going back to what you were saying about lines, and I don't know whether it's just because it was obviously a big overtime goal, but I do quite like the idea of seeing Martin and Doucette linked up on a line together. And I know, again, that's sort of going into splitting up that line from last year, but I would be intrigued to see how they went over a few games, 5-on-5
It's a conundrum because I think we had a little bit of a conversation on Twitter last week, and I put the question out there. The Martin Morissette Lord line has been fantastic, and has been our go-to line for some time, and has started this season off very well. But do you look maybe to split them up for the greater good? I'd potentially like to see maybe a Kirker with Martin, and maybe Salters, who's not quite sure of his role on that third unit, could jump up to a unit with Haddad and do set. Andrew Lord, who I think is a top 6 player and is a fantastic player, and is probably my favourite player on the roster, to be honest, but maybe if he dropped down to a third line, from a coaching perspective, maybe that pressure of not being on a top 6 unit might give him a little bit of breathing space in terms of the coaching element. So maybe it's still too early in the season to do it, but I think it is quite an interesting question. That Martin, Morissette, Lord line has been the go-to line, but would it benefit the team as a whole to potentially look to split some of those elements up?
No, I think it's a good point.
It's true that it is early in the season, but then at the same time, is in some ways that makes it a really good opportunity to do that sort of thing as well. Especially, for instance, that you would anticipate that there are going to be some home games where the Devils perhaps have all but secured a win by the third period, given the form at home and things like that. And that might be an opportunity then to sort of experiment with a few things. There might be 1 or 2 cup games coming up where, given the position in the cup, there might be an opportunity to do that as well. So I think it'd be interesting to see. And as well, coming back into that, just finally, I thought Walton was very impressive last weekend, and he seems to have been a little bit reserved in his play the first sort of couple of weekends, and maybe that's to do with the not diminished role he's been given 5-on-5, but sort of it was almost sort of advertised that when he was coming back that he was going to be a sort of third line forward. But I mean, he's got so much skill, and I mean that goal he scored against the Clan was just sublime, wasn't it? And we saw a few more moves like that. And he's a top 6 forward as well. It's just that there's 3 lines in this Devils side that basically are 3, at least first or second lines. And it might be interesting to see how he goes, in a different combination as well. So I think the thing is about having the guys that are there, and I suppose it's a good time to mention that Culligan has flown in this week as well. Obviously he's not going to be playing just yet, but that's going to be an interesting dynamic as well. The options are there. They're quite vast, aren't they, in terms of the depth of talent on those forward lines. So it's quite exciting, I think.
No, I agree. I think you're right. It certainly will be interesting to see this weekend. Obviously, we got a game on the big ice. Then we got a game on the small ice, which obviously we'll talk about that shortly. But I think it'll be interesting to see what Lord potentially does, whether we see some shifts between the 2 games. Whether we see some switching of the deep areas, or whether we just see some differences in the way the forwards are playing. Moving on, we did a player review in the first show. Oh no, we should mention, very briefly before we go, congratulations to Morissette on the hat-trick in the Manchester game, which
absolutely.
was great.
Because
Mo's a guy who does everything well and quietly. He doesn't make a great fuss on the ice. He rarely takes a penalty or anything, but always does a great job for us. Blocks an awful lot of shots. Great player. So congratulations to him on the hat-trick. We kind of reviewed the majority of players on the first show, but we didn't talk about CJ and Piggott and Callum and Adam to some extent. So I thought it'd be nice just to briefly touch on how you think those guys are going this season, how you think the help that they got from Hudson through the off-season has benefited them, and maybe what you see for Callum going forward, for instance, because obviously he's a young man with a lot of talent, which was clearly evident in those games. So how do you think those guys, what do you make of how those guys are going so far this season?
Impressed. Chris Jones, I think you always know what you're going to get. He's a good skater. He's defensively responsible. He'll chip the puck in. He'll chase. His coverage is good. He continues to improve. If he could add a little bit more offense to his game, obviously that would be beneficial. But he's a responsible player. A little bit of a coach's dream. You can throw him out in certain situations, and he's certainly not going to weaken the lineup when he's
playing penalty kill
he
as well, isn't he? Which is great.
Luke Piggott, I would give a particular shout out for. I think he's come back and he looks a different player this year. He looks more controlled in himself. He's always been an energy player. Great that he wants to do stuff for the team, but maybe on occasion has in his enthusiasm to be that energy player, that energy role, has given away cheap penalties. When I've seen him this year, I think his puck retention has been better, and I think he's been controlled in his play, but still bringing the energy, still bringing the good skating skills. So I've been very impressed with him. And
well, I think just on that, I think they're going to get more certainly away from, because I don't think at home there's a necessity for that fourth line.
No.
They've put out sort of a couple of times, but I think Thompson used it sort of fairly regularly, but he had a complete fourth line when Sheffield came down. Finity didn't use that fourth line too much in that game.
And County's already left, isn't he?
And County's gone that. Yeah, exactly. So, but I think away from home, again, I think they'll see more time as a fourth line.
They're on the ice after every penalty kill
Yeah.
and power play to bring the rotation back round anyway. So they're taking a regular shift. They've got to be responsible in that. And then, as you say, in terms of fourth line shift, you can put them out, at any stage. Callum, I think the link up with Swindon is doing him the world of good. And I've mentioned this a few times in commentary. People get bored of it, but I would like that link up to be established to a great degree with Swindon. They're only sort of 80 minutes, 90 minutes down the road. You can have that connection. I think Callum has always been known as a good puck handling defenseman, but maybe 18 months ago he looked like a boy playing a man's game. He had all the skills, but maybe he didn't have the physique or the confidence in his role. I think a year at Swindon, he's put on a little bit of weight. He's clearing guys away from the net. He's keeping people from the outside, or keeping people to the outside, but he's still got that puck handling. He's still got that great skating ability. So another year at Swindon. Let's have a look at him next year. Maybe he can jump up and be part of the roster.
Yeah, I'd agree. I thought he was great in pre-season. I do remember one particular game where he stopped a certain goal. And I just thought he had looking very solid. He obviously making great progress. So well done to Callum. And he scored on the weekend as well.
He did.
So congratulations on that as well. That was great.
And I should give a shout out to his dad, Scott, who I play football with. And if he does watch this, Scott is one of the hardest footballers you ever come against. But I'm against him tomorrow in the game. So Scott, give me an easy time.
So if you're in a cast next week, we'll know what happened.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And very briefly, I thought Adam Harding looked good in pre-season as well. I thought he'd looked like he'd improved his game as well. He looked a bit sharper, a bit faster.
Again, it's regular shifts and playing in different situations. You're not sitting on the bench and just being thrown in for one or two shifts a game. You go to the EPL, you go to Swindon, and you're having to play penalty kill, you're having to play power play, 5-on-5 in tight game situations. That's how the North Americans do it. You have that farm system. So, okay, it's going to be to a lesser degree in Britain. It's going to be maybe slightly less formal, but no, I would certainly improve, or not improve, but continue to build on that relationship with Swindon. Alec gets bored of me talking about it. Corey McEwen's down there in Swindon, Dougie's son. He qualifies as a Brit. Really important, I think, for us that we keep an eye on how he develops. And yeah, let's just develop players that way and get them on that natural stepping stone right through to the Elite League. No,
I think you're right. I like the way you're thinking. So moving on from that, this week, sounded quite American, didn't it?
So do I for the record.
Do you?
I don't get
I like the way you're thinking as well, Alex. So moving on to this weekend's game, so we've got a game on big ice again, and we face Nottingham. They've currently got a couple of injury problems. Obviously, War took a nasty puck on the weekend, broke a couple of ribs. So that's the bravery of hockey players for you. Yeah, we wish him the best in his recovery, obviously.
Because he looked really good in Cardiff, I thought.
Yes, I thought they look a better unit than they've looked for a little while now. Again, I think Corey's recruited well. He's been a bit unfortunate with some of what happens to some of the players, but
that's an opportunity for the Devils. That's a league game as well, isn't it? So that is an opportunity. You don't wish to see players injured, but it does change the dynamic a little bit with War out, Clark possibly still out. Is that right? And somebody else.
Vida.
Vida Good. Is out as well. And he looked very good actually, I thought as well. I know he was sort of a short-term sign potentially, but I actually thought
he put himself about more than I was expecting.
Good. Yeah, handled the puck well, very good positioning. So that's going to be a good opportunity for the Devils. I think. I know it's only that again, it's early season away from home where the Devils don't traditionally shine, perhaps, but. It's a league game as well, so that'll add a little bit more to it. And I think as well, something I noticed, I don't know whether, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but it did seem like, they've got a lot of high quality players, the Panthers, but it felt to me like there was a little bit of pace lacking there. Yeah. And they've got a lot of high caliber players who played in the NHL a little while ago, or played in high leagues a little while ago, are still very, very good quality players, but perhaps don't have the legs that they may have had 5 years ago or so. So, I mean, that's the only game I've seen from the Panthers other than highlights, so I might be being a bit harsh there, but I do think that might be an area that the Devils can target up there.
No, I'd agree, and again, same as you, I've only seen one live game and a few highlights. I think their puck management is very good. I think it's a different type of threat they pose. I think they've got some very intelligent players. Moran, I think, looks highly impressive. Schultz, Bombach, what have you. I think they manage the puck and retain the puck very well. But I don't think they've got a blistering speed or blistering transition game similar to when we went to Sheffield.
Absolutely,
a couple of weeks ago.
And Manchester. And
Manchester as well.
But also, I think that an era where I think the Devils perhaps could have exploited more at home, but they did to a degree. Certainly, Saltis did in that game. Was that there isn't really a big clear out defenseman there for the Panthers now, with War out of the lineup as well. If ever there's an opportunity for the Devils to start being a little bit more physical away from home and get in and around the net, it's not a big goaltender, Vickman either, is he? Up there. He's a very good goaltender, but not a big goaltender. That is the game I think where the Devils need to maybe, again it's early season, try a few things out there, get in on the forecheck and try and get some bodies out front, because I don't think there's a lot there. Very good defence, solid defence. I think Schmidt is one of the best players in the league personally. I think he's just high calibre, he just does everything right. But there's not a big powerhouse back there that's going to clear some of the Devils guys away. So that'd be interesting to see how they approach that game up there.
And they had a loss on the weekend, is that right? They lose to Coventry 1-0?
They lost 1-0.
A misfiring Coventry side so far this season. So I haven't seen any highlights of that game, so I'm not quite sure how it went. Maybe it could be that Stuart Brodie stood on his head all the way through as he quite often does.
I think from what I've read, it was just done. I think Russ Cowley was saying it today. Just the Coventry side went back to basics of a Chuck Webber system and just first and foremost made sure that they cleared the puck away from the net, cleared the zone. Just broke up. But I can't imagine it was the most entertaining game in the world. And I'm not saying that because it was 1-0, because there have been some fantastic 1-0 games. It didn't sound like the most entertaining game in the world to watch, but I think Coventry just got back to basics, and maybe Nottingham struggled to break them down a little.
Yeah, I mean, Coventry, when they win, they're going to win games by the odd goal or a couple of goals, aren't they? And they got a lead in that game, their Weber system is far more difficult and more effective when playing with a lead. Yeah. So again, you only seen the highlights, you don't know, but perhaps there's definitely a couple of pacey players there, the Panthers, but perhaps with that little bit lack of sort of speed, and then obviously Stewart in goal, and the Blaze are able to. So yeah, I think that'll be. That's definitely a game. I think that undoubtedly there has to be an improvement for the Devils in that game against the Panthers, and certainly without that, with a couple of players missing there as well, the Devils perhaps.
We've got to try and take advantage, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
So moving on to Sunday's home game, first time we've seen Fife. We know what you get with Fife. You always get competitive edge. They're very hard working. Todd always drills his teams. He's been working on intensity with the guys over the last couple of weeks. He felt they were lacking that a bit. They're coming off the back of 2 wins last weekend, so a little bit of a roll, because previously to that they've kind of been up and down. They've lost Kaig, obviously, with the suspension that's just been announced. He's a big player for them. They've got Brown in the nets, which to many people before the season started was seen as a weakness, but actually Brown got man of the match in the last 2 games and has been playing very well. So what are you expecting from that game? Well, I don't think I've quite covered everything, sorry. What do you think?
It'll be a hard challenge. It always is against Fife. Todd Dutien organises his team very well. They play some tight systems. I think, and I don't know a lot about I haven't seen a lot of them this year, but what I've read about them and the players they've brought in, it looks like they've got a little bit more scoring depth this year. Maybe previously they had 1 scoring line and 2 lines that would look to tie you up a little bit. I think they've improved on that this year, and they've probably got some decent secondary scoring. So they've had some impressive results so far. They blew away Coventry in opening night up in Kirkcaldy. But then I guess it's similar to how some teams might look at Cardiff. Going into Cardiff is a very, very hard rink, and you don't expect to get a lot out of it. But maybe when Cardiff travel to you, you think you've got more of a chance and you might expect a victory. I think probably Fife have the same issue. Kirkcaldy is a very intimidating place to go into, and they would expect to give everybody a game and beat everybody at Kirkcaldy, but maybe they don't travel quite so well. So I think they'll give the Devils some problems. I think they'll be well organised. I think they've got slightly more scoring than they've had in recent seasons. But I'd be, with my Devils fan hat on, I'd be very disappointed if the Devils didn't walk out of there with a victory.
No, I think that's. I think that I would expect us to win that game. I think we should have too much for them on our home ice. And obviously they're missing the big man this season as well, Nicholson, who's gone off to Belfast.
Yeah, and that's important in the 10th, isn't it, as well? You know, talked about with Nottingham, you know, and if the Devils are determined to get to the net, it makes it a lot easier without Nicholson there.
Yeah, he was a player, I must admit, that I always rated.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's plenty of people across the league who would try and talk him down, but for me, he does his job very well.
I think he was a better puck handler than people gave him credit for, and just the number of minutes he played. For a guy that people say, oh, he's big, he's not mobile, what have you, I thought he skated okay, and he was their number one shutdown defenseman. He played a lot of minutes for Fife. So no, I'm with you. I thought that was a canny pickup by Belfast. Maybe plays a fifth or sixth defenseman. Good in most situations, and obviously bring that physical edge as well. So no, I thought that was a smart pickup.
Yeah, if he's motivated as well, which I assume he is. He looks in good shape, isn't he, going into this season? He's played in some very, very good leagues, and you don't play in those leagues without being a talent. I think, that's a loss for Fife without a doubt, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. So I think on that note, we'll say, hope you all enjoyed watching. Look forward to the games on the weekend. Good luck to the guys. Good luck to the webcast guys, John and Aled as well. Hope you have a good show. Hope everything goes well with Red Army Travel, who are away at Nottingham, obviously, with
yeah, I suppose we should give a shout out for them as well, because I know that the fans or the players this week have been asking people to travel and what have you. So unfortunately, I've got the dubious pleasure of having to go and watch Cardiff City. But if you can get to Nottingham on Saturday, I think the guys would really appreciate your support. I
know they said after the Manchester game that they felt that had really given them a lift, but maybe they were struggling at points in that game. So they.
And then obviously the Fife game Sunday.
Yes.
You're working it.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the options of Icetime TV or Match Like That.
Yes.
Both good. I should say on Icetime TV, I believe this week we're going to be joined by Todd Kelman to do a review of the first month of the season, and Chris Callaghan is kindly going to join us as well. So you'll have to put up with me. Gaz will be excellent as always, but we'll have a couple of interviews for you.
Oh, that sounds good. We'll all look forward to that. So thanks very much for your time tonight, guys, and thanks to everyone else who's come along that you can't see on the camera.
Especially them.
Yeah.